You are now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the delay in starting. We wanted to ensure that we had quorum in the room for both of the committees present. The time is now 6:35 p.m. I am interim chair Matthew Rivard, and I call this select board budget meeting to order on this, the 19th day of March 2025. Will the advisory committee please call itself to order?
Yes, my name is Noel Francis. I'm the chairperson of the advisory committee. We have a quorum, and I call this meeting to order.
At this time, I would ask everyone to please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to remind everyone that today's meeting is being broadcast live on TCTV Cable Station 8 and our YouTube web platform. For those who wish to revisit any part of our proceedings, the recording will also be available on our YouTube channel. We would hope that you would subscribe for all their videos. The chat area in our YouTube streams is considered the same as comments comments were requested in person. They will be allowed by the chair and must be accompanied by a name and address. If any audience members are recording this meeting or plan to do so, I would ask you to please notify us now. Seeing none, I'd like to welcome the select board this evening. We have a full quorum. I would also like to welcome the advisory committee this evening. They have 3 members on right now, 2 in the room and 1 on Zoom. Our agenda tonight, along with other public documents, is available at templetonma.gov, the official website for town information. Here you can also subscribe to alerts for all our public meetings and our town administrator's weekly report. For immediate updates, including emergency notifications, please enroll in the Code Red Alert system through our website or by calling 866-939-0911. This service is vital for staying informed on important and emergency matters. As chair, I maintain, As chair, I maintain the discretion to modify tonight's agenda as needed to manage time effectively, utilize personnel resources efficiently, and ensure public awareness. I reserve the right to rearrange agenda items to best accommodate our proceedings and our guests. If this is the first time attending a select board meeting, we welcome you. We are committed to serving our community with patience, fairness, and efficiency. We ask for the same courtesy and engagement from all participants tonight. Let's have a productive and respectful meeting. I would like to note that this evening there are no action items on this agenda. This is meant to be an informational meeting only. I would also note that please, we have 2 presentations tonight. We have NRSD, Narragansett Regional School District first, and then Massachusetts Regional Vocational Technical School District second. Again, this is meant to be informational. Okay, I will allow questions and comments from the people in the room. I will ask that please wait to be recognized. When you are recognized, I'm just going to ask you for your name and address the first time. Once we've done that the first time, I'm not going to ask you for it again because I assume we're all going to be here for the duration of tonight's meeting. Any questions or concerns with the order of this evening's presentations? All right. In that case, hearing none, let's begin with this evening's presentations. And the first presentation we're going to have this evening is going to be from the Narragansett Regional School District.
Will be on the screen?
Yes, Mr. Curry is going to project the presentation. I'd like to welcome Dr. Christopher Casavant, the superintendent of the Narragansett Regional School District, to the hot seat. I did turn down the propane on that chair a little bit. I would also like to mention that Molly Saperchi, the assistant superintendent, Anne-Marie Geister, the business manager, and Jen Smith, the chair of the school committee, are also in the room with us this evening. Dr. Casavant, how are you this evening?
Wonderful.
Good.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate that. I'm going to say right off at the very beginning that this is really a tale of 2 budget presentations. There's one that's obviously tonight, and the presentation will look a lot differently tomorrow night. And I'll get into that as we go. But this budget represents a level service budget. Okay. Tomorrow, I've been asked to present or at least create the budget that would reflect only a 2.5% increase over last year. So, we can escalate in between, the 2 for questions. But I won't go too much into tomorrow's because I need to present it to, of course, the school committee. Okay. So, we're obviously very proud of the things that we do. And with the monies that we do receive, we offer a lot of services to our students. So our MVP Academy with our partnership with Monty Tech has been absolutely fantastic for our 12 kids who go there. This is it's a new program. They actually stay at Narragansett for the balance of the day, but they receive vocational trainings at Monty Tech. And again, I don't want to stay too long on everything, but that has been a fantastic partnership. One of the other, obviously, we have done a lot with the athletic fields, or we're trying to. The field expansion project. We need to rebuild the varsity playing field, and that is the track, right? So the field inside the track has never been appropriate for whatever reason to play varsity games. When I say it was built that way, it just, for whatever reason, the pitch was so much in terms of the crown, it couldn't house any games. So given the fact that we only have one real athletic field, we needed another because we are wearing out, the one field that we do have, and we have kids spread out all over the place. So that was a project that we undertook this year, which has been, which we'll be able to actually play on this fall, which is fantastic. Our enrollment continues. Our increase in residents has been, notable over the past 3 to 4 FYs. We still continue to decrease school choice out students, and purposefully, we'll have to get into that a little bit as we move forward here today. Facilities, we've replaced carpet. We've done the heat pumps at the middle and high school to save electricity and heat. We've switched to an ebook system at the middle school, high school library. For those of you who don't know, the library is physically located at the high school. The middle school never could get into the library because the high school was constantly, they use it almost constantly. So utilizing an ebook library, students now can, check out books from the comfort of their iPad for the most part. Given that, we were able to recapture a lot of space within the library itself, small groups, et cetera. So that's pretty exciting. We continue to close discrepancy in teacher administrator salaries as compared to neighboring districts. We talk a lot about that. We've presented that over a few occasions over the last couple of years. And we've moved health insurance out of school choice. That is a huge deal. That was a concern, and we were able to do that last fiscal year. So those are just some of the highlights. So you have 2 slides. I think the next 2 slides, one is just some great pictures of the programs. Our band program is starting to thrive again once, since we've focused more on that area as well, which I know folks have wanted a marching band. We're trying very hard to get that back, but at least our middle school band there almost has doubled in size in 1 year, and that's fantastic. To the next slide. Okay, so this is the Chapter 70 funding. This is how the state, figures how they're going to and what they're going to give us. You will see ultimately that we are plus 17 students this year in the foundation. That increases, of course, the foundation rate per student. Again, the foundation rate is the number of students who live in Templeton and Phillipston who go to a public school.
Not necessarily Narragansett.
Not necessarily Narragansett, a public school. Okay. So I always make sure I say that correctly, because sometimes when you look at our enrollment, our school enrollment, they don't match because they're different. Low income has increased. We went up a low income group from low income group 7 to low income group 8. And we also doubled the number of ELL students over 1 year. Students who language is not their first language. And that has proven, well, in the formula, that's good because those are multipliers. But in terms of staffing and actual, making sure that they are receiving instruction or assistance in their native language to English is somewhat daunting, especially when they double in 1 year, which happened this year. Okay. So if you go to the next slide, and please just stop me at any point, but when you have more students than you did the year before, you're not held harmless. We've talked about that a lot, which means that they don't give you any more money, but they don't take any money away. All right. So you can see that we were the state chapter 78 kicked in $561,748 because we are plus 17 students. And that's good because that's money. That's extra money, right? More money, I should say. But, you know, in terms of, you know, how many students we have in the buildings, it can be, you know, it could be problematic depending on their age groups. So student enrollment, we do this every year, but when this really started right after COVID, I talk about this a lot, is that we saw our differential, the number of students, resident students increased dramatically over the years. All the while we were reducing school choice to make sure our numbers stayed healthy, meaning that our class sizes were not overburdened, et cetera. So we were not replacing those students who were school choice who graduated, for example, right? So we have, I think, 19 or 18 school choice students this year who are seniors. What we used to do in the past is replace those 18 with 18 across K through 12 someplace. We haven't done that in a while because we just really had no place to really put them, and we were concerned that our numbers were going to get too big. So all in all, we've reduced school choice. So when you look at the differential, we're plus 116 kids when you subtract out the 70 school choice kids. So we were at 200 school choice kids in FY21, and we're down to 130 for this year. So we've just gradually made sure that we're not overpopulating our schools. Okay. So again, another graph that just kind of shows you the foundation enrollment and enrolled. Of all the kids who are in the foundation enrollment, a vast majority of them attend Narragansett Regional School District, which is great. So you see the enrolled, you see the foundation, and they are, you know, they're consistently increasing since about FY22. Our school choice numbers, what's important for me anyway, or there are two things. There's the bragging line and there's the important line. The important line is the yellow one. That's the differential. So we're plus 43 kids when you factor in school choice out and how many kids who school choice in, who we allow to do that. So over the past, you know, since 22, we have steadily decreased the number of sending students. That's great. And that means that, you know, less kids are going to other districts in terms of school choice. That's a credit to the teachers, the administrators, who do the hard work, because obviously folks don't put their children in schools that they don't feel comfortable or they're not doing well in. Our receiving has dropped again, as we've talked about as well, because we have not replaced them. We have, you know, we've only taken in a handful here and there. That's going to need to change because the 43 students is too close to that line, meaning that we can't go upside down. We can't be paying out, you know, having more kids who school choice out than in, because once that happens, you're literally now paying money out. Bleeding. You're bleeding at that point. And we have to be very careful of that. Why? Because we have 9 teachers that are assigned or who are funded out of school choice. Why are they funded out of school choice? I say this every year. I do not know. It was done, you know, many years ago, but that is not unusual with districts who have at least positive school choice, you know, monies. So, okay. So we have to make sure that we're going to have to start talking about that. And if we go to the next slide, in terms of sending and receiving and the monies, you know, I always put this slide up there because the blue line is, you know, the important line. And that's the differential. And that's estimated because we do not get the final report until June. We get a preliminary report in December. People still come and go, but in June, they lock it in, so to speak. So that's why it says estimated. Okay. Okay. So we did something different. Folks talk a lot about staff. Matter of fact, they talk a lot about the number of staff and how many staff do we have, et cetera. So in total, we have 343.3 positions as of right now. Okay. That has definitely grown over the year. Since I've been here, it's been 9 years. Seems longer at times, but it has. because we've increased the number of students, right? And the needs have changed dramatically. So when we usually give you information, when we talk about the general fund, we talk about the budget, we're talking about the general fund budget because that's the monies that you're spending primarily, those are the staff members that are, that are being funded by both member towns, right? So, but we have circuit breaker revolving, which is a special education funding formula that we hopefully will receive every year, depending as we go forward. But we fund 2 teachers, 2 BCBAs, and a psychologist out of that fund. That does not come out of a general. You're not paying for those, right? Now, someone's going to say, "Well, wait a minute, my taxes pay for those." Okay, I would absolutely agree, but so are the folks from Wilmington. And every other town in the state, right? So those are state and or federal monies depending. When we start extended day revolving, which is probably one of the most important programs, if you ask a lot of our parents, that is self-supported. So we're not budgeting for that, the fees or tuition, whatever, what have you. Pays for those folks who run the extended day program, both of course during the year and during the summer. So those are self-support. The cafeteria revolving, all staff that come out of the cafeteria or who work in the cafeteria, come out of cafeteria revolving. Again, not a budgeted item, that's self-sustaining. Grants, okay, we all deal with grants. And there are multiple grants, we can certainly go through them. It can be Title I, there's college career, there's academic support coach. There are grants there that we, of course, fund staffing for specific needs. And those are there. Preschool revolving has been a question at times. That used to be self-supporting, but our 2 wonderful folks who've been, I don't want to date them, nor do I want to age them, but they have been in the programs. They've been preschool teachers for so long that the revolving account doesn't entirely take their salary. So there is absolutely some monies that come from the general fund, right, to help pay for that. Again, preschool is not mandatory, but what is mandatory is that if you have a preschool student who's a special needs child, the district is responsible to pay for services or find services, whether it be transportation or otherwise. So preschool is great because they're our kids and we want them to be here. We want to know them as soon as humanly possible, right? That's why preschool is fantastic. 2, for our special needs kiddos, we want them here because we want to be able to understand, what is, what's going on and how can we help? Because we don't want to wait, say to 1st grade until we, say get a kiddo into school, into the elementary. So we want to be able to have them as soon as possible. So preschool actually ultimately saves you money because you're not outplacing preschool kids. You're not paying for services outside from there. And I just talked about school choice, and there are 9 teachers in school choice that are in the revolving at this time. I'll pause because I don't want to know that I go at light speed, so I don't want to go too fast.
Your color code is the yellows are pay themselves.
Or not coming from, yes. So I don't know if there was
No, there is no.
honestly, there was,
no
yeah,
fee.
that's actually.
No rhyme or
Wow,
reason,
that's,
okay.
that's actually next level. We'll have to think about that next time. I'm like, I don't yellow does mean that. I don't know. So yeah, no, it doesn't mean that.
Okay.
So the 9 teachers in school choice,
Yep.
since it's going down, you guys are gonna have to have a discussion on, as that continues to diminish, on what's viable for that.
We're going to have to increase school choice. Yeah. We're going to have to increase the number of school choice kids. that
Not
come into-
decrease teachers,
What's that?
not decrease teachers.
Well, we can certainly talk about that. Those 9 teachers are spread over 2 buildings. And given right now with the number of kids that we have, never mind the
Saying today.
No, but never mind the ancillary services. Those 9 teachers could, again, we put the lowest paid teachers into, we move them in and out because we don't want to hit, against the school choice, but they could very well be, middle school math teacher. They could be, I don't know. So they're just not, they're part of the curriculum as well. So it'd be difficult to reduce those type of teachers unless we saw a big decrease in the number of students who are coming into the district. Okay.
Hang on 1 second, Chris.
Oh,
Bob. Chris,
Yeah.
Bob, behind you.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Just have a question.
Bob,
Oh, Robert May, 137 Shady Lane.
that's fine, thank you. Now you don't have to do it again.
Good luck with that. But question is this, when you were speaking, you were talking about preschool.
Mhm.
And my brain flashed back to reading the agreements and that we have. And if I'm not mistaken, the agreements that we have in place say K through 12.
Mm.
So, I mean, when you say we would be responsible to pay if they this, that, and the other thing,
Yeah.
how would we be responsible if our agreement doesn't include preschool?
The law requires you to pay for all special needs kids 3 years and older.
Thank you.
You know, so that's it. But I did find them in the minutes, and again, I have the book of books of minutes all the way back to, without exaggeration, 18 something.
Mhm.
And I found where that at some point decided that they needed an early childhood program, that's what they called it, and decided to do that because there were so many kids at that point. It was a while ago, but I was able to locate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're good. You said okay?
All right, is it okay?
Yeah.
Keep moving. All right.
That's it.
All right, off we go. All right, so, I believe, you know, when we start talking about NRSD expense increase. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on.
Sorry,
Nope, that's okay. Same process.
Liz Toth, Gray Road.
Thank you.
So, the funding that you're doing with the school choice.
Yeah.
Have you given any thought to slowly decreasing that number that is quote unquote funded by school choice? So that way, this year, you know, we have half a full-time equivalent coming out of that funding. So that way, because eventually, you know, you're.
Yes.
Okay,
Your point is very well taken. And so when we had our greatest opportunity, we did the smart thing and took insurance out of there, because that's a number that could go up exponentially. You know, sometimes you can't control, and why insurance is put in there, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I was not here. We got that out. So the next mission at this point is to hopefully create, you know, to gain some space budget wise, so we can start we don't want them in there. We absolutely don't want them in there. So I agree. That's the next big thing, so to speak.
okay, and one other thing is, this is more of I'm advocating
Mhm.
for more after-school care opportunities.
Sure.
Being very self-centered here, I have a grandson who can't get into the program.
I got you.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot of grandmoms who come to me and say, I got a grandson who can't get into the program, so
So,
I
please.
sympathize. I do, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. You may continue. You're good.
Okay, I just, all right. So obviously, the nomenclature that we use for the NRSD, this is a state nomenclature, the accounts, 1,000, 2,000, it's at the 1,000 series. In terms of when we do our budgets, per, you know, DESI, et cetera, this is the nomenclature that we use. It's fairly, when I say fairly standard, I don't mean to gloss over this, but these are the major categories or accounts that that everything basically falls into. And again, we certainly, again, from the 30,000-foot view, so you can see the increases as we go down. Pardon me. But when we start getting into the line item, line item budgets, et cetera, it's spelled out more, more clearly, or at least we think so. So again, where you're seeing the biggest is benefits, fixed charges, right? Insurance and benefits, right? Pay. Insurances, they've gone up quite a bit. Other school services, nursing, transportation, and athletics. We saw, and I'm sure we'll get to that about the contract with busing. Instructional increase, right? Principals, teachers, counselors, and, obviously our instructional arm of that. The administration is advertising, school committee expenses, central office administration, et cetera. And what it realizes at the very bottom, when all said and done, is a 6.89% increase in expenses. The budget drivers, which should come to as no surprise, if nothing else, we talk about this incessantly, but the big was the yellow bus transportation, school bus, call it yellow bus. Special education transportation is not to be, forgotten. That goes up on a regular basis, and it's problematic. There are many occasions where it costs more to transport the student to the place that they're receiving services than the place that's actually giving the services, or it's at least equal. Worcester retirement has gone up. Group insurance, as we know, has gone up. General liabilities have gone up. Health insurance went up. And of course, we had a staff COLA increase of 3%. So those are the drivers of what, has, increased the budget. When we look at challenges, I don't like to put increased enrollment there because it almost sounds like you don't want kids. It's not the case. Last year, thank you to the towns, we were able to catch up, in a sense. So, 101 kids over 2 FYs. Then they finally matriculated to the middle high school. We had some, and we still do, but we have a lot of issues with the number of kids in classrooms, and we were able to rectify that a little bit. So, but the increased enrollment is just when it comes in spurts. It seems to be calming down a little bit. We hope that happens for the next, couple of years, at least the next couple of years, to be candid. Will it? I don't know. We have a lot of houses being built, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. So again, more kids need more things, more stuff, more people. We are staff centric. They haven't figured out an AI way to teach children yet, at least in person. And so until they do, I guess you're stuck with me. Hard to fill positions. We currently still have four open positions and have had them open for the entire year. Teacher recruitment is tough.
Just out of curiosity, what are those 4 positions? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yep.
Or do one of your friends behind you know off
No,
the top of your head?
let's see how well I do. We have a high school special education teacher. We have a elementary chair, which is a special education chair position, runs the meetings, and we have 2 special education teachers at the middle school.
Special ed field.
So, but we also have had some difficulties with high school math in the past, but right now, that's what our openings are. Yes.
Off the top of my head, wondering if you could work with Carol Harris, the clerk, to go do a metagraph of birth rates to predict potential enrollment fluctuations in, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. So you can.
That's great. And I know that the pre-K folks do it because they try to figure out what the census is about kiddos who, on the census, right? So we know what's coming our way. So I'll check. I definitely would love to know what's coming down the pipe for sure. That'd be good. This year's class of the kindergarten is our largest in, I think, about 5-6 years. I don't know that that's a trend. I'm just simply saying that we had 109.
I have family that educate, and they were predicting trends on the university level from 2008, when there was going to be a glut because of low birth rate. So that's where that
other towns have
I pulled
suffered that
from.
Yeah, other towns have definitely suffered that. I know that for a fact. Our numbers seem to be either, where they're at, or they're growing. So I'm not.
Do a good census.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to illustrate too, and I think you and I have discussed this too, is that you said you have how many in the kindergarten this year?
109.
And how many school choice do you have in the kindergarten this year?
We only have 4 school choice kids out of 587 kids at the elementary.
Those are all in.
No, 4 is the normal, and then pre-K, I don't call them school choice. There are 5 there. They're tuitioned in.
Right.
So, I put them under school choice because what else do I put them in? But they're tuitioned in. They're not coming to first grade. They're just tuitioning into the program. So.
Yeah, there are 4 school choice kids over.
Yeah, in true, unless somebody left, last couple days or something, but only 4. And they're in the 4th grade. School choice, we talked about that. So sustainability, what have we tried? Well, the health insurance costs, we moved from school choice, again, that's a big deal. In FY25 to order preserve school choice funds. Employee salaries adjust to be closer to the local averages so we can recruit teachers. increase book access, again, using the electronic library. We've upgraded and continue to try to expand athletic fields and open space. Energy savings, we've worked a lot on that with either monies that from John Zlockman's office or other places in terms of our HVAC to make sure that we're doing preventative maintenance, but also to make sure that we're becoming, more energy conscious. Some of the work that we've done has saved us quite a bit of money, quite frankly, because you'd have runaway heat with the old pneumatic systems. You're talking about dried out tubes, et cetera, and they were built in 1950. That's, those things have miles and miles of pneumatic tube. And so when you change it out to, to an air handler or a heat pump, it becomes more efficient. So we're doing those things in slow and steady stages. And we're trying to add positions to meet the growing enrollment.
How's the wood chip oven?
That's awesome. The wood chip is, if we didn't have the wood chip, I don't know, given where the oil was, but it's still working fantastic. And so we haven't had any problems. Now,
Kudos to the janitor that has to go in the middle of the night and all and keep that running in the window. Wow.
we try to do that during the weekdays, but yeah, there have been times when someone's had to go in there to fix something or, the conveyor is not behaving. So obviously, sorry.
Sorry, hang on.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Cucumber?
before we get too
Yeah.
far ahead, I have a question about school choice.
Mhm.
So potentially, if there's only 4 school choice kids at TES, they're all 4th graders, next year they're 5th graders, there's 0 school choice kids.
Yep.
Then at TES, do you find it difficult to fill school choice spots for the older, is it for all, for all grades? Is it easier to fill school choice spots for elementary kids? Or is it harder? I know having teenage or pre-teenage that telling your kid, oh, guess what, your spot opened at Narragansett, you're going there. Is it harder to fill the middle school and high school spots, or is there a need and a want and desire for all the spots?
Well, first, great question. At one point, we had 50, 60 applicants for the elementary back in the day, school choice. We easily they're just alone. The middle school, high school is generally, we get more requests during the transition years. So 5th grade, you come into middle school, figure, okay, I want my child to go in with 5th grade, so they'll follow that, from the middle school. Or we see them a lot in the 9th grade, right? Transition years, right? Going into high school. So, or in our case, it's 8th grade, but generally 9th grade. So yeah, we've purposely just we have a lot of requests and we just really we sprinkle where we can at the middle and high school. We're going to have to think of something a little bit different just to make sure the differential stays, but there's never lack of interest, that's for sure.
Remind me of what we talked about that. I thought we were just grandfathering kids in and not taking any more school choice, or is it something that I'm missing?
No, we have not taken a school choice student at the elementary since they were first graders.
So that was.
Or
the thing
kindergartners. These
that
were
I
kindergartners,
missed. That
the
was the
fourth
thing
graders.
that I missed. So you can take them up in the higher grade?
I could take them, yes, we could take them wherever the school committee allows me to take them, depending on the space. The current 6th grade has 138 kids, or 132 kids. No one is coming into the 6th grade in terms of school choice. That's our largest group. That's just not happening. I can tell you that. We have graduating classes now of 93, 94, where it used to be 60. So we'll have our first graduating class of over 90 this year, and then they're 90s and all the way back, if not 100 in the freshman group. So, we have to be very, very strategic if we are going to put students, if we're going to take school choice students in any grade level.
So please pardon my not understanding. So if you take someone in, are their siblings grandfathered in?
No, there's a different consideration. You can consider them a little bit if there was, you could consider the siblings. It's not an automatic though. We have to do it by lottery. So if I have 20 kids who want to come and I only have 5 spots, and no matter what grade, we do a lottery. And I pick 5 names and tell the other 15, I'm sorry.
My confusion was, I thought that there was talk of fading out school choice altogether, but I must have missed.
Well, school choice was definitely an issue in FY 2021, right? With the budget, or 19 and 20, pardon me. because we had so many students and people were saying, well, yeah, you have all these kids from different places or different towns and we're paying to educate them. You know, we're providing staff to do that. Okay. Because you only receive $5,000 per kid when you have school choice in. So, so that point taken, right? So we haven't taken a student at the elementary school since then, when, you know, I think it was 20. And that would make sense because they were kindergartners when we took those 4, because they had already been accepted. But we just may have to look at that again because we can't let that differential drop because we, you know, there are expenses there.
Over my head.
Hang on, one more,
oh.
Chris, from the back.
Gail Noel, Winchester Street.
Thank you.
Are there any energy savings from the wind turbine, or is that non-defunct?
That's not ours.
Yeah.
No, it's not your.
No, it's the light company. They give us a $5,000 payment each year for a lease payment to have it there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Chris. You can continue.
Okay, so what you're seeing here, thank you, Ed, make sure I'm on the right slide here,
There you go.
is this is what is all around quote unquote town, okay? So just, I want to stop here just for a second to make sure that folks understand the process, because certainly have received a lot of phone calls, a lot of questions, a lot of things, okay? One, last year, when we talked about the staffing and we received, thank you, Templeton, the additional funds for those, it was about the staff members that we needed because we had the increase of kids. Okay. The conversation was that there would be this attempt of a 2.5 override. Okay. That was an actual conversation that took place because I think someone said, well, I can't believe you guys don't do projections. Well, that's not true. We did a projection. We did a projection for 1 year, which for this current year, and we didn't go any further with that because we hadn't negotiated with the teachers yet, but we knew, you know, that going into FY25, we knew basically what that would be. And in our last chairs meeting of that year, you know, again, Mr. Curry, the former town administrator, John Caplis, the former Phillipston administrator, school committee, Jen, we did that calculation and we said it was going to be $1 million. That's what we said. I was off a little bit. But again, it was projection because we didn't know what insurance was going to come in. So first off, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that it was clear that it was going to be $1 million this year, right? One, when I say this, I mean it because what I'm hearing is that we're just throwing stuff, you know, on this piece of paper. That is not how it went. Now, 2, the 2.5 override was going to be considered. Everyone knew that wasn't, you know, it's never a done deal. In November, we were told that the temperature wasn't so great for an override. As I said at that time, well, okay, but I still got to present this budget of what we at that point was a level service. What we did is we presented a level service budget because one, we didn't need any more people. We understood that the number, which was incredibly high, but we did that not to upset folks, but that was the charge. The charge was to show what level service was, okay? And we did that. At no point has anyone said that this was going to be the final number, because that somehow has, you know, said that the district is asking for a 2.5 override. The district asked for nothing. The district was informed that it was a possibility and that's what needed to happen for all services across the town of Templeton. What I understand clearly is that that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay. All right. So tomorrow night, I'm going to present a budget that shows a 2.5%, just a 2.5% increase over last year. I don't know where the miscommunication happened or what people have said. That's how it happened. And I only say the people's names because I don't want someone to think that I'm making up stories. Because why would we have hired 5, 6, 7 staff or whatever it was ultimately to know that we'd have to cut them a year later? That just doesn't make any sense, right? Now, yeah, we were gambling on the fact that, you know, there was going to be the temperature was going to be right for a 2.5 override. That is clearly not the case. So tonight or tomorrow, pardon me, tomorrow, I'm presenting a budget of just 2.5% over. So I just want to make sure I say that at this juncture, because this has not been forced down anyone's throat, so to speak. During the tri-board meeting, I was clear to say that whatever the will of course, I work for the school committee, but ultimately the people, if it's 2.5%, then it's 2.5%. And that was stated at the tri-board meeting. So I want to make sure I say that again for the whatever, how many people are watching. This has not been, just this, this cry that, well, we need this, we need that. It is, I showed you, but we're going to make the cuts that are necessary based on what I'm told to do, right? By the school, obviously by the school committee, and of course, the temperature in both towns. So to get back to projections, I want to make sure that this is, I'm going to be clear, and I'm going to say it in front of everyone, and I said it the other night, I didn't have the numbers. This is not a one-year problem. It's not. It's going to be a multi-year problem, and here is why. We were asked to do a projection for 3 years. We could do that better because we had the teacher's contract completed, okay? So we were asked to do a projection for 3 years. Well, sometimes it makes me nervous because I don't know what SPED is going to come in at, who knows, and I don't know what insurance is going to be at, but we went ahead and we basically took an average of those two increases, right, which are generally our largest drivers, okay? And we projected out with just the increase of 2.5% over last year, which is an $883,000 cut. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you understand that that's what we did. So we cut $883,000. Anne Marie, crunch the numbers. It is, and I know that I've handed these out. I know that people have them. Yep. So you're looking at $1 million every year increase, even with an $883,000 potentially, I have to say potentially decrease in this year's FY budget. Okay, I'm talking about FY26, not this year, FY26. Okay, so I want to make sure I say that for the record. People I know are going to just go, boom, right? That's way too much. We can't do that. I'm going to tell you, if we have this many kids, you just need, we're staff intensive, right? We're staff centric. You need people, and you need to pay them, and you have to get them here. I'm open always, to constructive feedback by any stretch. I am. I don't know, I don't have an answer other than to people I know, because we've sent out at least 7 copies of the line item budget for FY26, which now is almost defunct because I have another one tomorrow because it shows $884,000 worth of cuts. So I'm just going to say that out loud. So if you're looking at it, go, well, it's going to be a new one tomorrow because that's what we're presenting. So this is a problem, and I'm concerned about it because, one, I still have to educate students. I don't know how with all of that, given the temperature of both towns. Okay. I'm absolutely open, willing, and able to look at every single cost center, etc. Why not? We have nothing to hide. I've handed out more documents in the last 3 weeks, and I can't tell you. You have everything. You have literally everything, I think, that you could possibly want. So I want to make sure I say this again. You do not have someone who's resisting. You have someone here who's trying to be constructive, trying to be helpful. But I do need a direction, and I said that a couple of years ago. What's the plan? And I know that people are working hard, and it's hard, right? I need a plan, and so if it's going to be 2.5% the next year, I need to know that. Not in November. I'm sorry, but I know that things change. Noel came to speak with me. He said, look, I think about 400 numbers, all these numbers. And then it went away because of snow and ice, right? Yet because it was a bad winter. We understand that. But I think we just need to be more on par with that. And the chair meetings were helpful, because we were having good conversations, and I think that not everybody was there during those meetings, but to have a fruitful conversation. I just want to make sure I end with that. And then I'm sure there's people raising their hands behind me, so.
Start with the board.
Thank you. Can you
Guys, yes,
explain
Chris.
what
I got you.
staff-centric means?
Because technology can't, in essence, teach these kids. I know that some in town think that may not be true, but we have to hire staff, right? people talk about how these jobs have been automated, right? So, whatever. Well, car makers, people who build cars, they used to be all hand done. Well, now they're not, right? So I'm just using that as an example. So when you need a special and then there's the whole federal mandate, which I'm not even going to get into right now with special education, those numbers are increasing at a rate, and I have to fill those. Like I have no leeway with that. It's not like, well, they don't need that. I have to provide it, or it's a violation of IDEA, right? Their rights, right? So that is that's problematic.
First of all, I want to say, I really appreciate your presentations. I think you've laid out everything and done a very good job. I would ask that you address one thing that I personally am very concerned about, and I sent you an email. For many, many years, it's been a goal of, to eliminate the Department of Education. And what I'm very concerned about is and I asked your district for the numbers of federal aid, and we responded right away. And that number is about $1.3 million a year in federal monies that come from the federal government to the Narragansett Regional School District. And what I am concerned about is that with all the chaos in Washington today, is that it appears that we could skip a budget cycle where there might be one year, even though a lot of this money is required by an act of Congress, but I see the very real possibility of a skipped budget cycle until the state can decide to backfill that number or the aid is restored. And I'm very concerned about it because it's kind of like the Black Queen on the chessboard, I guess. Could you comment about that?
I have to say that I've been asked, well, what does the Federal Department of Ed do for you? So I will say to you, other than Title IX and some other things that they monitor, which is going to change. I realize that I really have to say that I'm not really affected by the Federal Department of Education. I don't communicate with them. It comes on from on high. It goes to the local DESE, right? It goes to DESE, and then whatever they need us to do, we do, right? So locally. What we're obviously concerned about is the funding. Title I, it's been around forever. Folks have talked about cutting that for a very long time. It never has come up. It may. What does that mean for us? Well, it's whatever whatever it was. It was 3 teachers, or whatever the case is, and that's reading and it's literacy, etc. The big one, quite frankly, is the IDA grant, the SPED, 242? No.
Yeah, 240.
240 grant, which really allows us to provide all kinds of services or people for special needs students, right? Which that is a big help because those costs don't roll back to the towns, right? If that were to evaporate, we're in trouble. Like we're in trouble. There's just no getting out of it. I guess the good news, which I don't mean that, but the good news is that everybody would be in trouble.
I was just gonna say,
It
wouldn't just be you.
Yeah, it
It's gonna
wouldn't be just us. It wouldn't be just, oh, Narragansett didn't do something right, so they're in trouble. It would be a much bigger issue. And so we sit here worried, but pressing on. So what have we done to kind of hopefully mitigate that? Title I is going to have to be, we're just going to have to not be as reliant on Title I until we can really figure out what that means, if it's going to stay. And we're trying to figure out some ways to not be so reliant on Title I in general. If it just went away tomorrow, I mean, that's what we're really worried about is how quickly it would happen. If they did that in August, which is generally when we learn what our Title I allotment will be. If they just said, you're not getting your money this year, well, that's August. We're in trouble. Like, do you know what I'm saying? But that trouble isn't as bad as if we lose IDEA money. That's a whole other situation, quite frankly.
If I may, with a follow-up question, out of the 1.2 or $1.3 million, my recollection is about 400,000 of that is school lunch money. Is that, could that be a problematic,
Well,
could be the loss of those funds?
Yeah. So feeding kids obviously is exceptionally important to everyone. No one would deny that. The grant that they canceled recently was monies that were being able to use to buy local products. So we buy all our cheese and most of our milk, I think. No,
Cheese.
milk and cheese from Smith's Country Cheese, right? And that's what the grant was for.
Hmm.
So it's like 40.
20,000 over 2
20,000.
years.
Yeah, so, okay. So they've cut that. Now, that's not taking away free lunch, so don't hear me say that, right? I would say that if they were to cut that amount from the federal side, because they pay probably the lion's share of it, in the states, Massachusetts specifically picks up the smaller portion of that. If they were to cut those monies, we'd have to kind of go back to the old days, right? Which is, again, for the lack of a better word, folks, is the free and reduced lunch forms, right? We send them out, you fill them out, we get them in, we process them, that. So from that standpoint, I guess, the students whom are the neediest would have this ability to eat. But what we know is that threshold is not high enough or low enough, depending on how you look at it. And we have kids who definitely need to eat, but they don't hit that magic number. And that's just a shame, quite frankly. We've talked a lot about this. There are kids who need to eat, but they do not show up on any report in terms of, being low income. And we have a lot of those kids here, a lot. And so that is, yes, we're worried. Right now, though, we haven't. We're okay, right? But we're waiting for that shoe to drop, and then we have to get the form, because it's a timing thing. If you don't get those forms in and then back, that reimbursement's not going to be available for them, or, for their free or reduced lunch. So we're hopeful that people are that they're very meticulous in how they do this and just don't cut, because if it's a timing issue with the FIT, then I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah. So,
Yes, so a couple of questions, 3 questions, I guess. First is a statement.
Mhm.
Calling the $800,000 a cut, I think is inappropriate. Because you're asking for a bunch of money. You don't have it yet. It's not in your formalized budget yet.
Right.
So calling it an $800,000 cut, I think is just wrong. Second, looking at the numbers, roughly 8% for Phillipston, 11% increase off of what you're showing tonight. I think is really unfair to the town of Templeton. I'll go on record saying I think Phillipston has actually quietly withdrawn from the district, but that's my opinion. It's not a legal opinion, it's my personal opinion. And I had a third one. What was the third one? Those two. Yeah. I lost it.
Okay.
I'll ask a question.
Mr. Chair,
okay, because I haven't heard from Mr. Moser yet, I'd like to recognize Mr. Moser on Zoom, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cassaway. Thank you for being here to present to us tonight. I was happy to hear that you are open to hearing suggestions and analysis from other people. You've provided us some information that's been helpful in analyzing the budget. I think there's still some work to go. My concern in looking at some of these numbers is that really this budget just doesn't work going forward without override after override. There is something structurally wrong with the budget. And I think you and I had talked about that at the chair's meeting a couple of weeks ago. And I think you're in agreement with it. I don't want to put words into your mouth. But this is something that we're going to have to work on year after year because something structurally is just wrong. We've had, it looks like a couple of years ago, an increase of about 1% of Templeton residents or core residents, excuse me, as you call them in the district. And then this year it's less than 1%. And yet the budget's going up, 11% last year and 11% this year for Templeton. I know that there's additional costs. You have some certainty with your teacher contract and now the transportation contract, which is skyrocketed. But I guess there are some numbers that I was confused about how, and without getting down in the weeds, one thing that jumped out at me is that you said the cost of instruction went up by 5.96% in the last year. You had a 3% increase for paying people. with the cost of living adjustment or whatever is in the contract, and I believe you've said you haven't hired anybody new. So how does that get to a 6% increase?
Steps. So I know that folks have the contract because they've asked for that as well. So when you, in any teacher contract, you're gonna, in the back pages, you're gonna see their grid, the salary grids, years 1 to whatever. And you're gonna see, obviously, what they get for whatever years of service and their what do they call it? Education, right? Masters and beyond. The fact of the matter is that if you then look at between those steps, there is a built-in increase there, right? They call them step increases. Now, before everyone gets, why'd you do that, Cassavant? Those have been there for I don't know how long, to be very candid. They just, because you're just really adding to the step, to the grid. And, again, we have another business manager. She can, either not weigh in or weigh in, but those step increases are what create that increased amount. So it's 3%, for example, across the entire grid, but between each step, there is a percentage increase. Okay, so if you look at our grid, I think it's step 8, but don't quote me. There's a step in there that's worth 8%. Why? I think going back many years, that was the very last step at some point. So someone must have negotiated that on step, whatever it was, you're going to get X. Okay. So over the years, what do? You try to add steps, right? Kind of spread it out. So all of a sudden, step, whatever it was, last step is now in the middle. It's not funny, but it's in the middle of the grid now, right? Because we've added steps over the years. So, again, you do the calculation. Matter of fact, I have it, so not here tonight, but I can show you what the percentage increases are between the steps. So that's where that extra money, where that comes from. Or that's where that number comes from.
I understand. The way I look at it is that, I tried to look at this several different ways. If we, in a magical world, were to have an override that passed tomorrow, and we get you funded the way that you had presented tonight, there's still an issue next year, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And, on the other hand, if we're trying to fund it at a 2.5% increase every year, like we do every other part of our town's budget, it doesn't seem like it's sustainable. There's something structurally wrong with the budget. And I don't know if it's, the composition of the district, if it's overhead or administration or I don't know what it is yet. But it's just, it doesn't work the way it's set up right now. And it's a concern of mine because it seems like what I'm hearing is the only way to, as you describe it, level fund the services that are needed for our students is to get override after override after override.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. I think the answer to what you just said is that first off, here's a shameless plug for, hey, let's get the regional agreement, figured out, because when you look at that, no matter what's happening right now, that funding potentially could be an issue, right? So I'm certainly not going to get into all of that, but you're talking about an 85-15 split right now. Ish. I think it's actually 86-14 if I need to be candid. That's gone up quite a, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I have no idea where to walk here.
Look this way, look this way, yeah.
Jesus God.
Camera's there.
I'm looking at Bob, I'm looking at all these people. So the fact of the matter is that you're talking about an 86-14 split. Well, no matter what happens, that is unbalanced, obviously. There's ways, when I say around it, that's what conversation's about. Well, through the regional agreement, I've been, again, off, air or whatever you call it, folks have reached out to me from other districts to talk about, certain, because again, it's hard everywhere, so to speak, right now. Is that an option? I don't know, but currently the way it is set up, right, much of this is based, I think, is the way the student populations are now falling even so much, even more than it was 5 years ago, give or take. So I think there's that piece. I think the other things we can talk about, obviously, of course, I'm open to doing that. Invite those kind of conversations. But we have to provide services, and I think that no one has anything extra. You know, I won't belittle, you know, a position maybe in some other districts that they may have. We're generally, you know, if we have something that's quote unquote a little bit different than a classroom teacher, it's generally a support. You know, we've added 3 special education pairs in the last 4 weeks. I have no control over that. That comes from IEPs.
Mm.
And so that's one example, by the way. That's the services that they need. I'm not, whatever. Speech and language, OT, these things are starting to really, they're becoming unmanageable, and we're not able to plan for them as well as that we used to, because you could just understand, things are just, people are moving in, you know, we don't know, again, it's new. We have a lot of new kids, and we have new things that we're gonna, you know, need to think about. Whoever I'm talking to, so.
Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Prince.
In talking with state officials, it appears that one of the drivers of, you know, the budget, released from the town side, is the Student Opportunity Act, which I believe is going to come to an end in another couple of budget cycles.
2 years. They paused 1 year, so so.
I know in talking, you know, I've talked with a couple of state officials about, you know, trying to moderate that from the town side. My question, and what I would ask you to comment on is, when this act expires, or how did that act affect your projections?
Well, we actually benefited from the SOA, given the years that we had all those kids come into the district. Okay, so, you know, I don't want to speak too ill of SOA because it's helped us in a sense in terms of funds, just money. Okay, clear. But for some of our neighboring districts who I talk to, they're really making a lot of money, right? When I say that, because their numbers are so large, or they're some of those multiplier groups, special education, ELL, low income, they have a lot of those kids, and so, you know, their SOA allotments are gigantic, right? Like it's unbelievable monies. That's just the way, because again, they're cities or they're very, very, very large towns. Small districts, especially small regionals, and our association has done, it's something like 74% of the regionals, and don't quote me on that number, I can get it, but were held harmless this year, meaning they didn't receive any more money from the state. We can't say that this year because we actually, we received $500,000 because we're plus 17 kids. But we've only been not held harmless 3 times in, I've got to say,
My Narragansett life.
yeah, right. So only 3 times since whenever have we actually received Chapter 78, because we didn't, we increased the numbers of kids, right? We, foundationally. So yeah, it's a problem. I have to say that, yep, it's increased the foundation enrollment amount, but what it also has done, as I know you know this, your minimum local contribution and what you're responsible to pay now is skyrocketed because these kids have gone, right? There's more kids. And that's really truthfully a state issue, right? That's the formula, playing havoc. And what is your target? And I mean, again,
I have
one of the best in the world is going to explain it here in about 20 minutes, but I mean,
I've asked state officials to fix this because, it's a problem, in my perspective, it's a problem with Templeton, but it is literally driving some small towns into bankruptcy.
because you have Wellesley who is going to receive some money, because when they created this, everybody receives something. Okay, well, guess what? They don't need like we need. I don't, look, that's that simple. So that's part of the problem, right? And some people have gotten so far off their target. I mean, again, we can talk about this another time. It's almost like you'll never be able to catch up because you're so far behind where where your target share is supposed to be. And depending on, your, oh God, the EQV and the local well, I mean, it just becomes, and like, what do you do with that? I don't know, because you couldn't possibly make up all that, but they're just going to keep assessing more money. And so it becomes this issue, and you're right, it's at the state level. It has to be fixed there necessarily. I think,
I've tried to fix it and I've gone nowhere. I've really tried to fix this.
It's,
And the best that I've been able to. The best I've been able to do is, get a commitment that maybe, they'll try to do something.
and I think that a lot of what we're seeing here, Mr. Francis, and to the rest of the room too, is that a lot of the problems that we are having, I mean, yes, they're local problems, but a lot of the problems that we're also having is problems at the state level that need to be fixed, and the state isn't willing to fix those problems either. And no matter how much the little towns west of 495, that most people don't know what their names are, scream and moan and complain about it. I mean, it's an unfortunate fact of life in this state that, I mean, if you're inside of 495, you're paid more attention to. And if you're outside of if you're west of 495, the further west you go, the more forgotten you get. And I mean, ask town out in the western four counties. I mean, you think it's bad here, ask towns out in Hampshire and Hamden and Berkshire and those counties. So I mean, and it's a fundamental problem. And I mean, I love the conversation, but I mean, the fact is, unfortunately, we can't break that wheel here tonight, and that's what stinks.
Absolutely.
We need to. It needs to be said, and I know that enough towns and cities say it that hopefully something will get done. But I mean, that wheel needs to get broken at a level above
Give you
us.
an example of the disparity. My granddaughter's school district, grades 3 through 12. 500 stringed instrument all together in the gym. 500 kids playing stringed instruments, all performing together from 3rd grade up.
I like our kids better.
Oh, I like my granddaughter.
Paid to say that.
I like my granddaughter.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
But I'm just
Yes, Mr. Bennett, go ahead.
Just a quick comment on the budget, 2.5, you're gonna increase 2.5%. The town wants to increase, if the town increases 2.5%. So 2.5% levy increase that happens every year due to the state law. Say in Templeton, it's 300 grand, but a 2.5% increase in the town budget is 200, and 2.5% on the school just has to be 200. You're in the hole,
Right.
trying to manage minimal. So, I mean, I'm probably stating the obvious, but the 2.5 thing is not going to solve money issues on either side. It's personally, I think west of 495, our towns need to get together and go to court, but that probably not happen either. But the 2.5 thing, if out in TV land, the 2.5%, the people might be going, yeah, see, they did it. But it's not a long-term workable solution because it's always going to be almost guaranteed. So
Our 2.5% is going to be huge, just no matter what, because of our,
it's just going to get,
it's just going to get bigger. Right?
And to your point, Mr. Bennett, that entire, even Prop 2.5 was put in at a time when inflation was generally 2.5% or less, and hasn't been that way in years. So even that in itself is broken, So I mean, it's another situation that the state needs to fix on their end of it. So
so people out there know that 2.5 thing is all right, yeah, but it hasn't solved anything because next year will be.
I just want to look across the board real quick and make sure, because I've heard from a few people, and I just want to make sure I got Mr. May, I have seen you, give me a moment. You're good, Mr. Curry. You're good, Jeff, you're good.
Chair.
From the advisory committee, so hanging in the room, Mr. Francis.
I'm good, thank you.
John Caplis is on.
Yep.
He's just raising his hand.
You're good, Ms. McCumber. Let's go to the, let's go to the magic wall. Don, Mr. Kaplan, did you have something?
I did. I two things. First thing, House 1, once that gets approved, is there any projection of any more increased funding?
Well, they generally, they always say that there's going to be, right? So I don't know what it will be, but of course that, they always allude that that's gonna happen, but I don't know this year. I think this year's a very different year statewide too, in terms
Right.
of funding, to be honest with you.
Well, the other thing I have to add is, just for TV land, people understand that, Templeton as a whole, which is a wicked, a really great community. We actually get about almost 68% assistance from the state. While everybody 495 belt in towards Boston is around 42 to 48% assistance. So what's tough for us is to keep going back to the state to say, hey, we need more, we need more, we need more. And yet we always get whacked because it's like, well, we already given you over 65% assistance while everybody else is getting 48%. So, and then that's a big battle between the Concord Carlisles of the world and all the Boston schools and the Metro Boston schools, because they're not getting as much assistance as we are. I know it doesn't seem like much, but when you look at the roundabout things, how the school functions work and how the budgetary process works through the process that, from the governor's desk all the way down. I just want people to understand that that's fact. And you can check that online yourself. But I mean, we do get a lot of assistance from the state. Do we want more? Of course we do, because the more we get from them, the less that we as taxpayers have to pay, which I think is a great thing for all of us. But I mean, at the end of the day, just don't be disillusioned that we are getting a lot of assistance from the state. We really are. Out of a projected $26 million budget, I mean, the amount of dollars that come in all different areas, from Medicare to state aid to federal aid to Chapter 70, all the Chapter 70s. There is a lot of dollars that are anticipated based on the budgetary responsibilities of Gansett. Thank you.
Anything else from the magic wall? Mr. Kaplis, you're good? Mr. Moser, anything else from you, sir?
Nope.
If there's no other Gail?
Have we been receiving funds from Phillipston?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely received their line.
So they're officially obligated, yeah.
Still have me in the list?
Bob?
Yeah, I just wanted to state one thing that I see that, is in line with everybody's talking about, but it just, is apparently obvious to me that we have two towns with a budget that's virtually the same size as the school. If you combine both of our budgets,
Yeah,
about the same size as the school. So a 2.5% increase for these towns does not facilitate a 2.5% increase
Absolutely.
for you.
Yes.
And that's all I'm saying. We can't be delusioned
Right.
that is
Right.
gonna work.
Right.
It just is not. The best we could probably do at that rate is something like 1%. Or
Yes.
split that 2.5% in some way. And that's just not gonna work for either party. So we do have to figure out an alternative, and I think we need to do it more publicly.
Yeah. Agreed.
More minds in it, more voices in it. We'll come up with a better solution. I think.
Ms. Toth, last one?
Yeah, the other thing is that outside of your funding is the district has come to the town looking at other buckets of money.
Yep.
Okay, and I honestly believe that that's inappropriate, because you already have your allotment, you already have what you get from the town, and trying to get other avenues without matching funds from Phillipston, I believe is inappropriate, because you're asking more of the residents of Templeton.
And I want to respond to that because, then I know that folks know this by this point, but I think that's a point well taken. My job is to advocate for this district, and I'm going to do that. If I think we need something, I'm going to chase it. Absolutely. And I'm going to work as hard as I can in order to achieve that goal. With all that said, he doesn't need me to pump his tires. He doesn't like it anyway, but when I heard that from Jeff, one meeting, it resonated, and I said, that is because Templeton has been absolutely, again, with all the monies before, with the drainage and the stuff after, and I've taken back that request. And if you don't know, I've done that and did so through CPC, I think last week. Again, so, yeah, I think that's something that's an issue. And I point well taken. Absolutely.
If there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, I know there's a lot of concerns. Let's just move on from that for a second, please. If there's no other questions, comments, or concerns, I'd like to thank Dr. Casavant and his entourage. I was gonna say his team of professionals that are smarter than he is in order to do all this work, for coming in this evening and presenting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Posse, entourage, I don't know what you want to call it, but enjoy it. All right. Round two. I'd like to introduce
Hi, Superintendent Brown.
Superintendent Brown and welcome. These fine people represent Montezut Regional Vocational Technical School, which we are a member community of, along with what, about 3/4 of the state or something like that? I haven't.
17 other towns.
All right. All right. Which one of these beautiful packets are we looking
Just
at?
let
for-
me know wherever you want me to jump around.
It
I know
will
it's
be-
not the entire thing. Just let me know.
It will be when I do my presentation.
Sure.
Yes.
What are we looking at?
We're gonna
first?
start off with the one with the pretty cover.
Start with the one with the pretty photos. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll quickly kind of just go through that. We'd like to give everybody an update of, what's happening, some of the big things at Monty Tech, and obviously Chris referred to the Academy and our partnerships. That's gonna be a big piece. But one of the other things I always like to emphasize is when we come here to talk about budgets and everything, we fully understand the conversation that everybody was just having about the difficulties that are hitting a lot of our towns. So Monty Tech, we try to make a very strong effort to see if we can fund things without having to affect the towns, and that's why we really focus on grants and try to go after and chase grants. The first slide you see here in terms of the presentation just kind of shows what all the regional vocational schools have in terms of per pupil expenditures. If you see, Monty Tech is basically down in the bottom third. Again, because that's why we try to spend within our means, try to keep increases as low as possible so we can keep those assessment numbers down as low as possible. But then what we do to support that is obviously we chase after grants. The second slide kind of speaks to, and it was brought up by Ms. Francis, in terms of just the federal monies. So this is not the competitive grants. These are the grants that we have access to every year. Much like Chris talked about, we have about $1 million in grants that okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, no worries.
Sorry, this
Yeah, he
portion,
doesn't have it.
this portion is not in a PowerPoint,
Yeah,
just in stuff.
That's the next part, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have about $1 million in federal grant funds. Again, similar to what Chris was talking about, IDEA is a big piece of ours. I would echo Chris's comments. If that money were to go away, we would have several paraprofessionals that we would have to look at how we were going to fund those. Our Title I money, we do have a couple staff members under that as well. The top one is the Perkins funds. A lot of that helps us in terms of purchasing equipment, but it's also the funds we use to pay for our students when they have to sit for assessments or anything to get their industry recognized credentials. So absolutely, similar to, I think if you said, had any superintendent, business manager sit here, we're going to say that for money going away is going to be a concern. Our hope, what I will say, and as I'm sure you see in the news as well, is that even when they talk about the Department of Ed being removed, that the funds would still come. It's just the services but until I see that happen, I'm not going to believe it. So we'll see.
Don't hold your breath. Yeah, I
Correct,
get it.
correct. The next page shows you where we stand in terms of our competitive grants. So these are the ones that we seek out. You can see we've had significant growth in our competitive grants. We have an amazing grant writer, Katie Whitaker, who supports us. And I'm going to talk a little bit. So the next slide kind of shows you some of the grants that we have received recently, highlighting a couple of them. I'm going to talk about down the road a little bit here, but some of the smaller ones in terms of municipal cybersecurity grant. I talked to you about last year. We did have a cyber incident, so we focused on some of that information. The Clean Energy Center grant, I'll talk about in a little second, the disabilities one. The bottom one's actually the Career Technical Initiative. That's a grant that supports actually our night school program. And we just submitted that grant, and actually, even though I think you have 778,000, if we earn that grant, it'll actually be $970,000. So we're looking at, if we get the remaining grants that we have, we're hoping to be able to come and say that we've earned $4.2 million
in grants this year, competitive grants. So, MVP Academy, as Chris talked about, partnership's been going on. We started the program. That first slide kind of shows you, this is, to the right is the warehouse that we've leased. Again, that was using a lab modernization grant. It was about a $1.8 million grant that allowed us renovations. You can see on the top left, it was a gutted warehouse. There was nothing in it. So everything that's been built, pretty much the entire building outside of the exterior walls, we've renovated in some way. And I'll show you some pictures there. That's some of the MVP students working there. If you look to the right, you can see Fitchburg, Gardner, and Narragansett are 3 partner districts. HC stands for House Carpentry. That's one program. 11 juniors in terms of HC 11. HC 12 is the House Carpentry seniors. And then it's electrical is the other program that we have in place right now. Really excited to have Narragansett ends up being the kind of small but muddy. We divided up the enrollment based on the same way we divide up enrollment for the full school. So it does have it a little bit smaller. Obviously, Fitchburg ends up getting a bigger number. The pictures on the left there, that's the house carpentry program. Bottom is the electrical program. And again, the building didn't exist. It was empty. So everything you see there, it was either built or some of the stuff obviously purchased. So that was done by our students. What was really exciting is we got the kids who are in the MVP program. Eventually we brought them down and they were actually able to be putting together their own educational facility, which was fantastic. And because it's Narragansett, I'll give one very quick story because we're short of time. The associate commissioner for CT came out to take a tour of the building and she was walking around and she walked up to a student from Narragansett, one of our electrical students. And she asked him, well, do you like this program? And his comment was, I had applied to Monty Tech when I was in middle school and I didn't get in. And when I saw this program, I immediately applied. And he said, it's the best thing I've ever done. This is exactly what I want to do. And frankly, I wanted to hug the kid right there. But it was just fantastic. It really, that is why we're doing this program, is to provide workforce training to folks who didn't get the original opportunity.
Can I just ask a quick question
may.
here based on the numbers here?
Yep.
Am I looking at the numbers total at the bottom that Fitchburg and Gardner haven't been able to fill all their holes in their spaces in the program and we have?
So yes, yes, absolutely. And part of that is the seniors are only getting 1 year of training. So you'll see the senior numbers are a little bit smaller in some of the programs because a lot of kids were thinking, well, I'm only going to get 1 year. What's that really going to get me? But we kept those spots with those districts and kids in case some kids said, hey, listen, I want to go for it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Could I just add something?
Of course.
This program was on the chopping block last year, and if it wasn't for that collaborative approach and working with the school to try and say, can you come down? We're going to try and come up to your number. This was one of the programs that we saved because we worked with the school to get their budget to work. And I am so happy that you said that. Absolutely touches me right here to hear that those kids love that program so much and that you put the pictures in there. I can't thank you enough.
No problem. Thank you. There's a few other pictures in there. Obviously, we did all the utilities. Our HVAC program took care of that. Again, a couple MVP students doing some work, putting together the electrical booths. So again, really pleased with everything that happened there. Last year, we had started this program. I'm not sure when we presented if we had done it, but we fully believe that all populations deserve to have worthwhile workforce training. And one of the groups of folks that really get ignored are folks with disabilities. Students have autistic, emotional, social emotional concerns. A grant came up through Commonwealth Corporation to provide workforce training for young adults, so 18 to 33. So this is an after-school program to receive workforce training. We were very pleased when we applied for the grant. We were shocked to find out that we were the only vocational school in the state that applied for the grant. We were able to provide training for last year, 12 students. There was resume training, there was work skills training, professionalism training. But the goal of this grant is placement, to get these students, they start off with internships, then hopefully consistently get jobs. I think if you flip over, I don't have on this one, unfortunately. But we did place a whole bunch of these students. It went so well that this year we doubled the number of students. We have 25 students in this program this year. Again, workforce training, places like AIS in Leominster, Red Apple Barn, Hannaford's, Stillman Farm, local places that were willing to take on these kids after the program and have them work there. So it's been it's been wonderful. It's a great program. We also try to combine grants if we have to. Last year, if you recall, I was here talking about our auto body spray booth that we've been working to get. We had pretty much the original spray booth in the building. When we put it out to bid, the cost was a little bit more than what we thought it was going to be. So we kind of held off. We did put it out to bid. We combined 4 different. So you saw we have a donation from an anonymous donor. We applied for this Donnelly grant. We used some of our Perkins funds. Again, those are federal funds and just some of our budget funds. And now we were able to get that because we leveraged everything together. We are able to get that spray booth that's going to be installed starting in May. So we're very excited about that. And again, we're happy enough to get another anonymous donation. This one's going to help support our engineering program, but even more so, if anyone here is involved in construction, you know, one of the things that's lacking everywhere, heavy equipment operators. There are not enough around. There's not enough construction folks in general. But one of the things that's fantastic is you no longer have to buy those that heavy equipment to train them on it. They have simulators that allow them to do it right in the classroom. And if you ever get to play with one, it's very cool. There's 3D versions. We had one in a couple of weeks ago. I did not run over anybody when I was driving it around the work site, but it was very.
I'm looking at that picture. That's a video game I want to try.
Yes. Another thing, we're very fortunate. We want to thank, because a lot of our folks come from Templeton. We have workforce partners all over the place. Last year, we set a record for the number of students out on co-op. We had 235 kids at the end of the year that were doing, instead of going to shop during their shop week, we're going out to work for companies in the trade. We're already at 228 students this year, so I think we're going to have another record-breaking year. The 235 was set at that basically 1 in every 3 of all our juniors and seniors was out on co-op. So that's a fantastic thing. And we thank those workforce partners. Not necessarily go through it, but we always try to share our plans for postgraduate plans for all the different jobs. Again, in general, the orange ones are kind of our construction trades you expect kids to be going straight into the workforce. The ones in blue are ones where the kids really do need to go on and get additional training at the collegiate level or even the community college level. So you'll see that those pretty much match up as always. So again, you get all the shops for that. And then what I just want to show is the continuing ed program. So again, the program's called Career Technical Initiative. It's a cost-free workforce training program. This is funded by the state, works through Mass Hire. And basically the students need to apply through Mass Hire. If they get accepted, they get the training for free. There's actually built-in safety things for these students to keep them in the program. Folks were realizing, hey, the kid, if one of these young adults, their car breaks down and they can't get to class, or someone has childcare issues, there's funds that these folks can work to get to access to still and stay consistent in the program. So it's an amazing program. You can see the different programs that we brought into place. It's carpentry, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. This fall, we're going to bring in landscaping and small engine repair as a program because we see that as a needed group. And you can see the one chart on the left there just kind of shows where all the different folks for all the programs, not just the CTI programs, but where they come from. And certainly we get folks from everybody. And last but not least,
Question?
Sorry,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So on where you have the military from the postgraduate plans,
for the post, yes, correct.
do you track like what MOS, what specialty? Do you know if they go into a specialty that they went to school for, or do you not know what?
So the requirement is only just a 1-year survey about when they graduate. So if we get that information, if they send it to
Yeah,
us,
but you don't have any anecdotes?
no, we don't.
or-
Yeah, we don't necessarily
Okay.
follow it that deeply. But we also, and that's the one thing I thank you for saying that, because one thing I should always mention, these are the categories that the state allows us to put the kids in. So workforce, 2-year college, 4-year college, military and tech school. We know that some of the guys who go into the military are going to take 2-year college programs at the same time. They're kind of doubling up. And we know that there are folks that are at community college that are in the workforce as well. The problem is they can only put it down once. So, you know, the military sizes may look small, but we're sure they're doing other things besides that too.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. But last but not least, we want to make sure to the entire, both committees, now that we are finishing the building, we hope to have our grand opening of the academy fully done next month. we're back online to do projects for town. So if there's something that Templeton's looking to do, would you think you might be able to need the help of our folks? We would love to reach out to myself or Mr. Williams, our vocational director, and we'd love to help. And now I turn it over to the best business manager in the world, Tammy Cross.
Yes.
Yes, so now we're gonna use the other one that's up on the table.
Okay, hi, Tammy.
I get to do the boring part of the presentation, so.
Second, let me get my pillow up.
Yes, yes, you're right. So now,
You gonna do it?
sure,
Oh, you.
I think that would be kind of fun. Wow.
I like how you backed right out of that. That was
Oh,
good.
no.
So now we will be able to do the slides. I'm starting with foundation budget rates, because so much of the basis of our budget is the foundation budget. And I know Dr. Casavan showed you Narragansett's in his presentation, so you're going to see Monty Tech's. But when we talk about rates and the foundation budget, these are the background numbers. So for each grade level, you can see going down the left, there's a rate assigned to these cost categories that are going across the top. So you can see I've highlighted vocational.
Mhm.
Vocational is gets the or is funded at the highest rate because it's the most expensive form of education, not counting special education. So of the regular ed, it's the most expensive. So you can see the base per pupil for the foundation for vocational students is $17,354. And then the numbers above those, special ed, ELs, low income, those are the additional increases that Dr. Casavan talked about that you get for those same core students, but because the services provided in these categories are more expensive, you get some bumps above.
Tammy, because one thing I forgot to say in my part, but so I want Tammy just to quickly go over how, in terms of the reimbursement for the MVP program is going to work. And it's really fun, this slide that kind of shows.
Yes. So the MVP students, the great part about it is that those students remain enrolled in their home districts. So all the Gansett students stay in Gansett, Gardner, Fitchburg. The Chapter 70 funds goes to the sending schools, so it goes to Narragansett. The piece that Monty Tech will get out of this is the difference between now those 12 kids, they're going to be classified as vocational students in the foundation enrollment. So Narragansett will send us the difference between, looking at this first slide, the 17,354, which is a vocational kid, which now they'll get for that kid. And the difference between the 11,714, which is the number right below it, which would be the amount they would normally have gotten. So it's kind of
So you get 16,000, you get $6,000.
approximately
Yeah,
6,000.
Right.
Yes.
Right, and that's always, it's a year in arrears, so it's based on the October 1 from the previous year. So we didn't collect anything, for lack of a better phrase, this year, but we'll start that next year.
Yeah. Program was pretty much fully funded through grants that the state.
And you'll start collecting.
Yes, next year, because now the kids were claimed on this October 1. Okay, so the next slide, again, Dr. Casavan showed you this for Narragansett. So you can see from Monty Tech, all of our students are in column 7, vocational. And again, just to reiterate what he said, 1,488 students in our foundation enrollment. That is the students that live in our 18 cities and towns that attend Monty Tech. It's also the students from those communities that go to that school choice to another vocational school. And we also have a small practical nursing program, post-secondary, that's Chapter 74. So those students that reside there in member towns get added to that. So then they take the rates from the previous slide and they multiply it down, and that's how you get that first base. The next, again, we set our above base. So looking at column 8, says 74 special ed in district students. We have 236. But what that number 74 is, it's an assumed percentage. So even if you look at Gansets, that number doesn't match their true special ed. In the legend down below, you can see 3.97% of your enrollment is for non-vocational schools, and 4.97% is the number they put there for vocational schools. And they get the additional increments. In column 12, those are the ELs that attend Monty Tech and the additional bump. And then column 13 is the low income. Dr. Casavan talked about Gansett. I believe he said moving to low income group 8. We are in low income group 6. So there's funding associated with each income group. Add all those up.
Can I pause you right
Sure
there?
you can.
Were you held harmless or did you change?
So we are not held harmless.
Aha.
We are one on 211 schools in the Commonwealth were considered hold harmless districts.
We were last year.
But we were last year.
So you went up from, I'm assuming, from 5 to 6 this year, from group 5 to group 6.
Actually, in our low income group, we stayed at 6.
Okay. But you were not held harmless.
But we were not. Yep, you'll see that.
Okay.
So, and I was gonna bring that up, so
Okay.
thank you
I
for the
beat you to it, sorry.
No, I love it. So our total foundation budget is 30,990,414. That's the bottom right number.
Yep.
If you divide that out by the pupils, you see that will come to 20,827 per pupil.
Yep.
Now, what that number indicates is that is synonymous with required net school spending. So that's the minimum amount we must spend on all our students that go to Monty Tech, and it cannot include capital, debt service, transportation, and food. So that's the minimum. So I'm moving to the next slide, which is a synopsis of our chapter 70. So if you focus on rows 2 through 5, you can see they list our foundation budget. They subtract out from that our required district contributions. That's what all 18 communities are required to pay the school as their required minimums. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail in a minute. When you subtract that out, it comes to foundation aid for us for 26-18, 762,805, which is an increase of 290,597. Now, we were just talking about hold harmless. If we were a hold harmless district, the number in 5 would be less than the number, or 0. It would be 0 than it is in row 6. Row 6 is what the governor's number puts as the per pupil minimum increase. So if you are not due a state aid increase this year, you'll at least get the minimum of this. So if we were hold harmless, it would have been 111,600, but we're at 290,597. But again, 211 districts are there. I'm going to hop over to the right-hand side. One of the reasons we're not hold harmless is we have an increase of 12 students in our foundation enrollment. You can see the foundation budget we talked about. I'll get to the district contribution. Chapter 70, we just talked about. And I told you that net school spending, in our case, is synonymous with the foundation budget. You will note that in the FY25 column, our required net school spending is higher than our foundation budget. That's because we were a hold harmless district. And so the state says, if we're giving you more chapter 70 by that minimum, then you deserve, I'll say, you're going to spend it all. So that's why the required net school spending comes above. So that another thing I'd like to talk about on this slide is this is a predictor to what you're going to see in assessments. Our required net school spending goes up 871,000. We only are getting 290,000 in chapter 70. So you can see 580,000 coming from our districts. So again, based on your last conversation with Dr. Casavan, Go into the app. So next slide is the budget summary. Because Monty Tech's assessment to its communities is based on a few components. It starts with the community's required district contribution. That's one piece. The second component of the assessment to a community is the net portion for our transportation and other operating. The third component is the net portion of capital, because they're based on different percentages. Numbers, we'll look at that. And if we had debt service, that would be the fourth component, but we currently have no debt service right now. That would be assessed based on the same as capital, and that's spelled out in the district agreement. So I like to formulate my budget summary so you can see each component. So I'm just going to go down the top. Net school spending, we saw transportation, 2.5 million. That's our 30 school buses that come to and from the school every day. That's contractual. The next piece is our operating amounts that are above the requirement of the 30 million. That's 606,410. So we are proposing to be 1.96% above our requirement to meet our spending needs. Our capital budget and our vehicles, which is in the capital component, goes down in total is 500,000, but goes down by 10,000 from the current year. So that gives us a proposed budget of 34,641,344, which is a 3.51% increase. A lot of that you'll see is driven by our required net school spending increase of 2.9% because we are so close to our required spending. The next piece, Chapter 70. So you can see number one in red, required minimum, 12,227,609. That's the calculation by the state. That's about a 5% increase in assessments. The next piece is the transportation and other operating. So that's the transportation and above net school spending from above added together. From that, we subtract our estimated transportation aid from our cherry sheets. We also have a regional transportation fund. So if we as a school district get more money in our transportation aid than we budgeted, so if we get more in 25 than the 1.9 million that you see budgeted, the school committee votes to put that into this transportation revolving fund rather than having it roll right into our excess and deficiency, synonymous with free cash. And then they must be used in the following fiscal year to reduce assessments to our communities for transportation. So that's where we're estimating that 200,000. We're also proposing to use 250,000 of our excess and deficiency account, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So that leaves this piece of the assessment of a total of 700,930. The next piece is our capital budget from above, and we're proposing to use 250,000 from excess and deficiency, leaving a net 250 here, which for all assessments comes to a total of $13,178,539, or an increase overall to community assessments of 6.11%. The next slide gives you a little bit of detail of some of our account balances that I'd like to highlight. So certified excess and deficiency, I cannot give you that number officially yet. It has not been certified by the Department of Revenue as of yet, but I will say we can have approximately 1.6 million in that account. It's the requirement is 5% of your operating budget. So we can hold approximately 1.6 million. I'm anticipating our certified number to come in between 1 million and 1.12. So we're proposing using approximately half of that to offset the budget. We put a small amount each year into our capital stabilization account, which I outlined separately on the budget that you'll see next. We currently have 371,000 in there. That is because we try to maintain a consistent capital assessment each year. We try to fit the projects we need into that $450,000 range that you saw. The money we're putting in here is because we have projects that are going to come above that. We have our electrical main here that we're currently having an engineering study done on. We know that's going to come in more. So we want to combine our 450 of assessment money with these monies so that it maintains consistency to our communities in the assessment. We also put money into our OPEB account, other post-employment benefits, which is the health, and you do it too. For employees and retirees, we have a small amount in there, approximately 50,000. The next slide is our summary by function code. Dr. Casavian went through his when he told you about his functions 1000s, 2000s. This is how I break it out for you. So you can see it's just a tad more broken out, but not much. This gives you a kind of play-by-play of where our expenses are for the up and coming budget year to make up that 1.174 increase. The next slide will tell you in more detail, what are the drivers of those numbers of that increase. So you'll see that we also have a 3% COLA for next year for our staff, as well as I outlined step and column movements. So you can see that's approximately 581,000 of that increase. Fringe benefits, again, that's the medical, dental insurance, your life insurance, all of your benefits. We have a proposed 5% increase, or I'm budgeting that. So that comes in at about 438,000. Utilities and insurance. So that insurance is property insurance, comprehensive liability insurance, building type insurance. So the projected increases for those accounts, approximately 97,000. Then the other driver is our academic and vocational program equipment and supplies. Although Superintendent Brown and I took the initial requests from our department liaisons and cut out approximately 1.3 million from those, we still come up with this increase. Now, this is driven because we run 21 vocational programs that purchase copper, steel, lumber, electrical wire, food. I never thought I'd say eggs, but so we purchase all of these just to teach students. So we see an increase in that, of that amount. That's where we cut it down to keep it as minimal, but still give them what they need for their classes. And then I just pointed out the transportation increase for your benefit. The next slide is contributions by member towns, because I said the required minimum is the basis of our assessment. That's the most significant portion of each town's assessment. So I just want to give you a snapshot of all 18 communities. You can see Templeton goes from 87 to 83 students in the foundation enrollment. And that has your required minimum going from 604,576 to 583,816, or a decrease of 20,760. Now, it was alluded that I was going to tell you about this dreaded state formula, and I'll make it quick, because I know this is when Chris talked a little bit about the equalized valuations, this is it. So this is the state formula on how they come up with your required contribution. 1 through 3, they take your equalized property values as of 2024. So that's what they project Templeton's to be, that 1 billion is. they multiply that by a uniform property percentage. So that 0.3243, that's the number they use for everybody, every community in the state. So then they come up with Templeton's, what they call local effort from property wealth, which is row 3, 3,753,127. 4 through 6 is based on the income of the citizens. So you can see the number, they multiply that by the 1.5699%. Again, that's a uniform number used for every community across the Commonwealth. Come up with Templeton's local effort from income, 4,367,554. When you add 3 plus 6, you come up with row 7, which is called your combined effort yield, 8,120,681. This is what the state has determined Templeton can afford to pay towards its school districts at the base level. This is the floor part. Row 8 is the foundation budget, FY26. That's Templeton's portion of all the districts you belong to. So it's Gansett plus your piece of Monty Tech. So that's where that $19 million number comes from. They multiply that by 8. Oh, yes, it'll be on the next slide. Thank you, sir.
There you go.
They multiply that by 82.5%. That's when Dr. Kazavian said to you, even a community like Wellesley or those more wealthier communities, even they get money? Yes, they do. Even they get 17.5% Chapter 70, no matter how much they can afford to pay. So that's why the state puts that calculation in there. They compare the two numbers in 9 and 7, and they say, what's the lesser of the two? And in this case, it's the $8 million number, which is the lesser. Then we skip over to rows 13 through 16. And the state says, what did Templeton pay FY25 for their required local? $6,124,683. They multiply that by your municipal revenue growth factor. That number is different for every community, and it's calculated by the Department of Revenue. So you can see for Templeton, that's calculated at 4.16%, comes up to a required preliminary contribution of $6,379,470. They compare that to row 10, what they said they thought you could afford to pay. And they say, oh, that's a shortfall. So that's the number that's in row 21. The shortfall is 1.7 million. What percentage is that? It's 9.04%. So you can see in row 23, if the shortfall is greater than 7.5%, they add 2% on to what they determined your this year contribution could be. So they take 2% of row 13. They multiply that out. Then they add that number. So they've come up with 122,494. They add that number to your contribution calculated in 15. And that's how they come up with row 26, 6,501,964. That's what they said Templeton is going to contribute a required minimum contribution combined between Narragansett and Monty Tech. Well, I guess you have one student. You must have an Aggie.
One Norfolk Aggie, yeah.
Yep. Right. So you do, you have an Aggie student. So it breaks out 3 ways. They do that calculation for every community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So when they did that for all 18 of our communities, that's how they came up with that $12 million number that I told you at the start of my presentation was the required contributions. So anyways, looking at Templeton, I'm focusing on 5 through 9 because that's fiscal 26. So you can see your foundation enrollment in each bucket. For Monty Tech, you have 83 students. How they come up with your portion of Monty Tech's foundation budget is they take that 83 and they multiply it by the $20,800 per pupil that we talked about in my first slide on foundation budget. And that's how they come up with that number. And they say Monty Tech represents 8.98% of the total. So we're going to multiply the 6,501,964 by the 8.98%. And that's how we're going to come up with the required minimum contribution from Templeton to Monty Tech. That's how they come up with the 583,816. They do the same for Gansett and this other Templeton number. So you can see how those factor out. So 583,816, that's your base. So if you look on the next slide, it's a 2-year comparison of Templeton's assessments. So you can see, I'm looking at 26, the foundation budget, that's your 83 students times 20,000. Required minimum contribution, we just saw how that number was calculated. The transportation and operating of 39,098. That's Templeton's share of that number I showed you on the budget summary. So that's 39,098. And then the capital piece is Templeton's share of our capital apportionment. So adding those three up, it comes to an assessment, a total assessment, 633,606 for proposed for Templeton. And you can see I break down further what that it breaks out to per pupil. The next slide is just a total summary of all the communities, so you can see how the exact formula plays out for every community that belongs to Monty Tech. And that was a lot of information, and I apologize, but I am done. Happy to.
You apologizing for being done?
No, I'm apologizing for being long, sorry.
Great.
You know, I remember last year you had the worst cold. You recall that? You
Yes,
were,
yeah.
like having to take a break every couple minutes.
It's usually my spring cold.
Yeah.
I've just got, start with, anything, I'm gonna start with the board first.
I'm good.
Mike, Terry,
Thank you.
Jeff, Tim, Noel.
Tammy is always very, very in-depth, very informative.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
I'm just
Thank
gonna say, your presentation every year is very, very informative. It's, you know, your walkthrough of that formula, God help that thing. Thank you.
Nobody likes it, but I want to make sure.
Can't imagine why nobody likes it.
It's 92%
Yeah.
of your assessment
Right.
for Monty Tech, so I feel it's important to know how it comes up.
No, thank you for
And
going
again,
through it.
all our towns have concerns about the formula. And that's why we think it's important to walk through, so you understand that we understand that it's affecting a lot of towns.
I have no questions and comments from the select board. I'd like to go to Noel Francis of the advisory committee, and we'll go around the room.
Very quickly, I caught during your presentation that Monty Tech has no debt service.
Correct.
Can you just elaborate on why you have no debt service?
Yes, because it takes 18 of yeses to get some debt.
Oh, that's right. You have to get yeses. from
We
all these
get
people.
debt, so we try not to. We paid off our bond, that was the renovation project. A few years, probably going back more like 8 years now. Our latest renovation project was, we replaced all our rooftop units. We set up a boiler system, put in all new rooftop units, and that was 16 million. But we didn't have to take out a bond because we did it through a tax exempt lease because we paid for it through the energy savings. So that's built in, the payment for that $16 million project is built into our net school spending number.
Now, a couple of years ago, I met with you about the fact that you are
Yes, you
self-insured.
did.
And is that still successful?
Yes, it is. And I wish I had some wood to knock on because medical insurance is very, thank you, it's very volatile. But so far, yes,
So in the past couple of years, has your medical expenses been pretty stable?
we had a 4% increase this current year. And we're thinking about 5% next year.
And you still have reinsurance?
Oh, yes, yes. We have insurance on our insurance. So reinsurance is if somebody's claim, yeah, self-insured, goes over $65,000, our insurance pays us back anything above it. Kind of tries to help avoid catastrophic losses.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I just
Yeah.
have two more quick questions is, are you making, yearly, contributions? Are you a member of the Worcester County Retirement System?
No, we are a member of the state retirement system. So we do make annual payments to the state, approximately, off the top of my head, it's about 400,000.
And is that a stable number?
No.
And if you.
It's been semi-stable for us in regards that it's 450. The hard part of it is that state doesn't send out their billing until May for that year. And there's no budget, there's no just percentage. It's not like it's a percentage of our state payroll. It's based upon who retired and how much is Monty Tech's portion of what they're collecting.
Okay.
So it's a tough, yeah.
Okay, and my final question is, the bus contract, is it a 5-year contract or is it a different length?
Yep, so we did a 5-year, technically, it was 3 years with 2 optional years solely at the option of the district. So FY26 will be option year 1 of that bid, so essentially year 4.
Sounds like a baseball player.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, we took out our options.
So, when you, yeah, and this is my final question.
Sure.
Is last time that went out to bid, was it just 1 or 2 bidders or numerous bidders?
Yeah, we get numerous, I guess I'll say. We don't bid for one bus company. We bid by routes. At one point in time, 1 year, we had 5 bus companies. We put packages together, Ash West, Templeton, Phillipston, Fitchburg, Ashby, because we have bus companies that specialize in those areas. So they bid on those routes and we find we get the better routes, better prices for those. So we currently work with D-Bus, McCarthy and AA. So, and we also, I think, had a first student bid in our last one. So we get a few bidders. And I think it's because we don't ask one company to take our whole district. They find that difficult because of the spread out nature. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm good, thank you.
From TV Land, Mr. Moser, anything that you have any questions?
Just real quick, Noel, I think I know what you're onto, and I like what you're thinking. Perhaps there's an opportunity for us to collaborate with other districts in the area, maybe to get some scale for our next contract. It seems like in pricing out, students and 80-something students, 30-something thousand, we're paying much more than that for the number of students that we have in our district, and that's just within the town or two. So I like kind of where you're going with that, Noel, and perhaps that's something we can explore and either partnering with other districts or other schools in the area to get some more scale, to get a better opportunity for a contract that's more favorable to us in the future.
Mr. Moser, just something you may want to think of, and this comes from having lived in, I lived in East Longmeadow, just to the east of Springfield for some time. Look into what the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative did. Because they have it sounds like that's something exactly what they did down there. So I would take a look into that to give you maybe some guidance on that, just a thought process.
And if I can give you one other suggestion, one of the things that makes our routes simpler we fully use the 1 mile from your home bus stop So we don't have buses going all the way through neighborhoods. They're picking up on main roads and we tell the families, you live within a mile, that your bus stop can be within a mile from your home, and we use that. So I think that really helps simplify the bus routes for folks.
It's easier that we have the high schools, we don't have the
Correct,
littles.
correct.
So that makes a
Correct.
difference too.
Yep, that does make a difference. Absolutely.
Yes.
Mr. Moser, anything else that you'd like to ask?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplis?
Yeah, I have one, well, maybe two. First one is like back in, 2019, we had 89 students. Then we dropped to 88, then to 87. Now we're at 83. Our number keeps falling as far as our total, population of students from Templeton to the district here. Knowing the fact that we're getting more and more graduating students. I think this is the last year of like 90 plus kids, but I think next year after that's going to be about 105 to 112 kids, which is actually more kids than Winchendon, but Winchendon has about a 96 plus kid population. How come our number keeps dropping, and how is there a way that we could potentially increase our numbers to that district? Because obviously we have a lot of students that do want to attend Monty Tech. As you can see, the waiting list keeps growing and growing and growing. Any answers to that?
Yes.
Well, so one thing I'll say about potentially why your numbers has been declining is, you remember, and it was not too long ago, we did switch in terms of how we accepted students. It used to be that if a student who was accepted then declined or was offered a seat, if they declined it, we then went to the next person at the highest of the wait list. We now, and this has been going on for several years now, you're replaced by, so if a student from Fitchburg leaves, they're replaced by a Fitchburg student, the next Fitchburg student. So whereas in the past, and frankly, if I recall, you had a lot of kids from the Narragansett schools that were scoring very well. They were near the top of that wait list in terms of their score. So we were probably drawing extra kids above your quota. But now that we're only drawing directly from the towns, that's probably one of the reasons why you're not seeing the additional kids.
It is you graduated out 21 students, and we accepted your exact quota of kids this year of 16. So you see a delta, the delta there, and that is the only extra seats now that are available to communities that are not already your quota numbers are any communities that don't fill.
They're full
And the only one now we have that doesn't fill is Harvard. So
Holden made it, and then they're just short again
is
this year.
just short,
Yeah.
so that only frees up a small handful of other.
But that allows each town to know that their number's gonna be stable in terms of the number of kids who you're gonna have enrolled in general,
Yes,
plus or minus.
that certainly was a concern we heard from our communities, is that one year you'd have 60 kids that you're billed for, and the next year you had 80. Because it happened to be that your students were high on the wait list. So we did hear a lot of concern from our communities that it's hard to budget for that. So with this switch in the admissions process, it's meant to keep even.
As level as humanly
Yes,
possible.
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Kaplis, anything else?
Yeah, just one. When's your next union contract negotiation? When does that kick in? Because obviously that's going to have a hiccup and an effect down the road.
Yeah, it is. So we have next year's is still in effect. So it ends, the union contract ends in August 2026.
So you'll be negotiating
In the fall. Yes,
You'll be negotiating this coming.
yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, who's told?
So how do we, is it, first of all, is it possible to change our maximum number of students, our quota? Because, up front, our son graduated from Monty Tech and everything, and he came in through that, that higher on the list, the old set of rules, right?
Yeah.
Where he wouldn't have made it this round, and it made all the difference, I think, in the world for him personally. So is it possible to change it? And if so, what is the process?
So I don't know if that's talking to my.
No, you can go and talk.
I look this way because the
talk.
camera's here.
Oh,
Okay.
So unfortunately, not really, because it's built into the district agreement of how we accept students. And basically, things are apportioned by, we take the total number of students from K to 12 or 1 to 12?
It's 1 through 12.
1 through
There
12.
was no kindergarten when the district agreement was established.
And so for each town, so whatever percent, so we take that whole number, whatever percentage Templeton has of that whole number, that's what their quota is of the available seats. It fluctuates 1 or 2 seats a year, but in general, it's basically around the same thing.
If you keep having families move in and have more school attending children, your
True
number
story.
will go up
True
in
story.
that percentage for quota.
And that number is determined on a yearly basis?
Yes, it is. So, as Superintendent Brown said, it's the school attending children 1 through 12. And then the school committee establishes the freshman quota annually. So at their last meeting, they established that quota to be 360. So then what happens is Templeton's quota will be 4.28% of that class number. So that freshman number fluctuates each year. It could fluctuate by 5, 10 at the most students. So that changes. Might change by a kid or something.
I understand.
Yep.
What is your wait list compared to your enrollment?
So each year, it compared for the freshman year, the last couple of years, we've had 350 to 365 available seats, and we have 850 kids applying for that. So we're unfortunately saying no to 500 plus kids and families.
Is there any consideration of expanding your operation?
So if we were going to do anything, we'd be looking at a full replacement. Whittier Tech was one of the more recent ones that went for it, and I believe they're about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller. Their building was going to cost $455 million. And my guess is if we came before the 18 cities and towns, that there would not be a big appetite for that kind of money.
So we're
No, but we do talk a lot about, I'm sorry to interrupt you on Zoom. It's hard to tell. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
ahead.
That seems like something that is a state goal, to train more people to be able to fill vocational roles. And so, we talk a lot about different things we could ask our state legislators for and things like that, but there's tremendous need, and that's not a number that can be absorbed by the member communities really, but it would serve such a great benefit. And I've toured your facility, and you guys have done an amazing job with it. And there's obviously an opportunity to expand it, or as you said, full replacement, something like that. But talk about a win-win for the communities that participate in it, for the state and our employers, but also for our kids. And so, if that was something, the fact that the wait list is bigger than the enrollment that you could possibly fill is a shame.
So there are 2 pieces of legislation that would specifically allot funds to vocational schools for the purposes that you just talked about, for renovations or to expand a program or something like that. We're really hoping that those 2 pieces of legislation pass, and that would allow, and again, that's specifically for vocational schools.
Yeah, and just an economic driver for our area too, just the construction. So
we're also hoping that the MVP model really takes off, and that the state funds those type of programs more as well, like that we could expand into other buildings that are vacant throughout our communities, because we don't want to build a bigger school and take more kids from our sending districts and desecrate their budgets. So we need to work with the state to find a way that it gives kids the vocational education they want or need, but doesn't take away funds from the local school districts as well.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from anyone in the room?
That was the point I was gonna make. That program would help kids that couldn't get into Monty Tech for whatever reason, but they want to get into trades, and that's an avenue to accomplish that. My hope would be, since there's such a great need in all of the trades, is that the unions, you would think, would want to get in this and help out financially to, if nothing else, pick the kids up into transition into actually working. It's for things like they need apprenticeship and stuff like that, but actually almost like a co-op, pick the kids up after they've done what they can do in that program and then get out in the real workforce, because you know, they say, you know, we want housing, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. Where's the people that's gonna do this stuff?
That's right.
Lawyer, doctor, accountant, but somebody's gotta put your AC in, somebody's gotta put your electric, somebody's gotta come fix it.
Yeah.
And you really make a good living doing that stuff.
It's hard to outsource that job, Jeff. You're not gonna get AI to put in the air conditioner, so.
That's right.
That's also a fair point.
So just because Mr. Bennett brought it up, I will mention that for the MVP Academy, we are looking for, and we're gonna be posting stuff, some support from local businesses, local tradesmen, to help fund it. Because as Tammy mentioned, right now, a lot of it is grant funded. The Chapter 74 money will start coming in and everything else. But we're hoping to add plumbing, which would make it that we would have a total of 120 kids getting training. It's 120 kids going into 3 trades that desperately need that additional workforce. So, anyone out, you guys keep referring to TV land, anyone out in TV land who's a contractor or a businessman, call me or Katie Whitaker or Tammy Crockett. We'd love to get donations.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is in the lobby, that one of the pictures in the packet was, is the lobby. We're gonna put all the different, sponsors in our lobby, have their logos all through the building and everything else. So.
Because it would be better if the trades got involved rather than depending on the grants. which
100%.
can
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
More volatile than.
Yep. Yep.
Inflation sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions, comments, or concerns from for the Massachusetts Regional Vocational Technical School team? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
so much for your time.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Have a
you.
wonderful evening.
You as well.
I will make a note here to say that we do still have one student in the Norfolk Agricultural Technical School. Their team was not able to be here this evening, and I have instructed the interim, sorry, I said sorry about that. The interim town administrator to please try to schedule them with the boards as soon as possible, because they do deserve to make a presentation. So she's gonna work on that, and there may be a request for a joint boards meeting at that point so that Norfolk Agricultural can present. What I will say is that there is a note here that Holly received from them that does state that as of this year, they have one student who is a 10th grader, meaning the current school year. So that student will go to 11th grade next year. Okay, assuming the student returns and there are no additional students coming from Templeton to the Aggie, the tuition bill for next year will be $29,241, and that is what is reflected in your budget book, Article 23. Article 22 is the Norfolk Agricultural number for this coming year. The transportation number obviously is different. Is another animal. The NRSD team helps us with that because they were the ones who went and helped us get that number for us. So I just wanted to present that, but the interim town administrator is going to work to get a presentation for you folks from Norfolk Aggie as soon as they possibly can. And at this time, I'm going to go around the room with any sort of final comments or for this evening, and I'll start with our colleagues who are via Zoom. Mr. Moser, do you have any closing comments for this evening?
What did you call it earlier? The magic wall?
Yeah, the magic wall. I mean,
That's it for me
worked.
tonight. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplis?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Ms. McCumber?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Francis?
I'm all set.
From the select board, Mr. Toth?
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett? Mr. Curry?
Good to go.
Ms. Griffiths?
Fine, thank you.
And I have nothing for this day, so at this point, I would ask the advisory committee to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I need a roll?
Yes, you do, because you have remote participants.
The magic wall.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Kaplis,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Yes.
and I also vote yes. We are adjourned.
The advisory committee stands adjourned at 8:52 p.m. At this time, From the select board, I'll accept a motion to adjourn because it is always in order.
So moved.
I have Mr. Toth moving to adjourn, and I have a second from Mr. Bennett. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Hearing none, the select board is adjourned at 8:54 PM.